Hey girl, hey, and welcome back to another video with Let's Whine About It. Today I'm talking all about self-care and self-love. Both of these terms have been buzzwords for a while now, but as we head into the new year, there's been even more interest in those topics. I think for a couple of reasons. One being seasonal depression. It's colder, it's darker, the holidays are coming up and may bring up issues with our family and loved ones. And we're seeking ways to feel better, more loved, less anxious. Secondly, we're preparing for the new year, and around this time, we generally just take stock of our life and what we want from it. So again, seeking ways to be better versions of ourselves, a more happy, more fulfilled version. And of course, many times when we see self-care on our social media feeds, it's pampering yourself, getting massages, skincare routines, shopping, solo dates, or trips because you deserve. Now, I want to be clear, I support all of the above. But what we don't often see is how to strike a healthy balance between self-care and self-love. Self-care includes all of the things we just talked about, skincare, massages, things like that. But those things do not equate to self-love in its entirety. These things are equivalent to affection. For example, think about it in the context of a relationship with someone else. When you love someone, you express it through affection or care. You tell them you love them. You affirm them. You spend time with them. You may buy them gifts. You may do thoughtful and considerate things. This is how we express our love. But these acts of affection can also be very shallow and meaningless if it's coming from, let's say, a place of manipulation. Think about love bombing, a showering of extreme affection and extravagance when a person really doesn't care about you. Or they can be meaningless if it's coming from someone who's just going through the motions, but doesn't truly have a real understanding of you or deep love for you. That means when the chips are down, that person who showered you with that affection, who showed you care, may not be able to stand beside you through the storm. So sure, those acts of affection created a bond between you two. It made you feel good about yourself and about those moments. But in our quest to find true self-love, we should be in search of internal joy that goes beyond the happiness from external acts of affection or self-care. True self-love is more sustainable and enduring. And while self-care is important, it means nothing if we truly don't have self-love. If we take care of ourselves regularly, it better prepares us to handle life challenges that are bound to come up and be that better version of ourselves for ourselves and for the ones that we love. So instead of focusing on surface level acts of affection and self-care, today I want to share ways that I have been able to really show myself love that shows up in ways that allow me to have joy and peace beyond my ability to pamper myself. So let's get into it. Number 1, practice understanding your why. The reason this is important to developing self-love is because we have the tendency to self-soothe by doing things that distract us from the stress of reality. When we don't know what our why is, we rely on shallow things for pleasure instead of really fueling what brings us true joy. So think about a time when you were particularly unhappy or stressed. How did you cope? Was it through binge watching TV, having a glass of wine? Was it sex? Was it food? These somewhat shallow means of distraction aren't always vices, but they can be habit forming when done in excess, which typically happens when we self-soothe with these types of activities that don't bring sustainable joy. So these things are bringing us instant gratification. They're like instant hits of dopamine that are short-term and can keep you in a loop of doing them repeatedly with no real positive impact in your life. I have personally been there, and I can clearly remember a time in my life shortly after I was laid off from a job like years ago, and I was having a hard time finding my next move in my career. Things were, of course, financially tough. So when I finally landed on my feet, I worked really hard. So I wouldn't be in that position again. However, the job that I landed came with immense stress and responsibility. And because I didn't know how to properly tap into my why and find a sustainable source of joy, I found myself stuck in a loop of burning out mentally at work and then coming home and overindulging in quick fixes. A glass of wine almost every day after work, scrolling social media, ordering food instead of cooking food, shopping, trip planning. Now, all these things made me feel good in the moment, and I reasoned I worked really hard and I deserved this. But even with these acts of what some would call self-care, I still ended up burning out mentally and emotionally. It just also wasn't very good for my long-term health or my financial goals. I needed to find something more sustainable. So, how do you find your why? This is a common question that many struggle with, and it has taken me a while to understand myself. But what has helped me find my way is thinking about times that I was happy or in a good mood despite my circumstances. This may be hard in retrospect and may take some time, hence the reason I said at the beginning to practice understanding your why. It will take reflection. Journaling can help when you're currently experiencing joy despite your environment, and therapy can help you reflect on past events more quickly. But a quick go-to that can help jumpstart the process on your own is to think about a time when you naturally found a happy place amongst the dumpster fire that was 2020. Ask yourself, was it sustainable? And could it provide long-term improvement or happiness if I do this consistently and routinely? So for example, I'm a natural planner. When a group of friends or family get together, my brain automatically starts thinking of ways to make it an experience. I love a good itinerary. Personalized details are like a love language to me. And even though planning trips and creating get-togethers, wedding planning and dinner party planning come with certain levels of stress, at the end of it all, I have a feeling of joy and satisfaction seeing the fruits of my labor because it brings me joy to create moments for the ones that I love or to create moments for others to share with their loved ones. So creating experiences is one of my whys. That brings me to number 2. When and if you understand your why, do something routinely that affirms and develops that why. In the book Atomic Habits by author James Clear, he talks about casting a vote for the person you want to be. The premise is that habits develop over time and we start to form our identity by observing our habits. So once we're conscious of our why, we then want to lean into it, acting in alignment with that why daily. These don't have to be some big grandiose acts, but instead small intentional things that you do that will build over time and provide evidence to yourself that you're living in your purpose. So habits allow you to tap into your joy throughout your day to help manage the stress of everyday life in a healthy way. So one activity that I do daily that helps me make sure I'm nurturing my why is doing what I call GFT journaling. It's similar to daily meditation or gratitude journaling, but has a practical and structured element to it that I think makes a bigger impact on living in your purpose. So each day I write down my goal, the G, then something I feel good about, the F, and then something I'm thankful for, the T. That's where the GFT comes from. So for example, and each morning under my goals section for my GFT journaling, I make sure that I include some kind of purpose-driven task related to my why. It could be that I read 5 pages from a wine book, or that I think of 3 topics for my YouTube tutorials, or simply just watch the latest episode of Wine Folly. So depending on how busy my day is and how much energy I have to expend, I can adjust my level of commitment on these goals. But what never changes is that I am doing something. At the end of the day, I have the satisfaction of marking that task complete. I'm providing evidence to myself that I'm living in that purpose. But more important is that whatever that day held for me, I know I did something that brought me a little joy, that was in alignment with my why. Lastly, a huge part of developing self-love involves strengthening your emotional intelligence. There are 4 domains of emotional intelligence. 1, self-awareness. 2, self-management. 3, social awareness. And 4, relationship management. In the corporate world, we are trained to develop emotional intelligence because each of these domains can help a leader face any crisis with a lower level of stress, less emotional reactivity, and fewer unintended consequences. But aren't those results that we would want in our everyday life? When you demonstrate self-awareness, you are more conscious of your own feelings. Knowledge is power. Being aware of your own feelings puts you in charge and not your emotions. So, how do we develop emotional intelligence? There are quite literally hundreds of practices to improve and develop emotional intelligence. The key thing to remember is that it's a process and something you'll work on your entire life. But today I'm just going to mention 4 that I feel are the most impactful for myself. Number 1, practice observing how you feel. It's very easy to lose touch with our emotions. In order to reconnect, try setting a timer for various points during the day. When the timer goes off, take a few deep breaths and notice how you're feeling emotionally. Pay attention to where that emotion is showing up as a physical feeling in your body. The more you practice, the more it'll become second nature. Number 2, pay attention to how you behave. So while you're practicing emotional awareness, take the time to notice your behavior too. Observe how you act when you're experiencing certain emotions and the effects of your actions on your day-to-day life. Managing emotions becomes easier as well once we become more conscious of how we react to them. Number 3, question your own opinions. In this hyper-connected world that we live in today, it's easy to fall into a groupthink opinion bubble where your opinions are constantly reinforced by people who share similar viewpoints. It's important to read the other side of the story and have your views challenged, even when you feel that they're right. This will help you understand other people and become more receptive to new ideas. Number 4, take responsibility for your feelings. This may be especially challenging for some. Your emotions and behavior come from you. They don't come from anyone else. It may on face value seem like someone has made you angry or sad or happy and so on. But once you start accepting responsibility for how you feel and how you behave, it will have a positive impact on all areas of your life. So that's it, guys. That is my very condensed version of ways that I help develop and nurture my self-love. I may do another video that focuses on how my faith plays a big part in that, because honestly, who is a better example of love than God? But for now, I'll leave it here. So thank y'all for spending the day with me. I hope you found these self-love tips helpful. Comment some of your best self-love practices, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Cheers.